you've talked about sobriety and you tweeted about it. And I know that must mean so much to so many young people because, as you well know, mental health is not talked about, especially for young men, like talked openly about like these kind of struggles. And I'm just curious, like looking back, like, do you tie any of what you've been through in with the work, with the industry, with the pressures that you felt? Or was this all just going to happen anyways? This is just like genetic and, predispositions and the stuff that you were going to go through. I mean, looking back, you must have had time to sort this out and think this through about sort of the genesis of what you've gone through.
It was this feeling of not being able to fully comprehend, come to terms with the deep emotions that I had within me. I always found that quite scary growing up. I also suffered with what we call, a spiritual malady. I had this big hole in my body and in my sort of being that I just didn't know how to kind of fill. And when I discovered alcohol, it was like all of this fear goes away. It just disappears. And you marry that with an inability to, know the fact that I don't have an off switch. It's a catalyst for total disaster. Also, for me, there was this feeling of like wanting almost to kind of, I think because I wasn't able to like I was saying, to fully grasp who I was, there was also this feeling of wanting to self-destruct in some way. And so my addiction was a very isolating and lonely place for me. It wasn't, it's not like it really is made out to be in, the movies with rock stars where it's like you're touring the world taking a load of drugs. The reality is that often, you're spending a large amount of time on your own and wanting to be on your own with your chosen substance.
Right.
And that also creates a really deep level of depression. And so the whole cycle is incredibly cyclical. Just one thing feeds into another. And I would never ever say that it was any fault of any career that I had chosen. I could have been a chartered accountant and done the same thing. Right. I think it was just who I am. And it's funny, I don't think my mom would mind me talking about this. Like, my mom always saw it in me. She was like, you need to stay away from certain things. And I was like, don't be silly. Like, I'm a kid, like I'll do what I want to do. But she was right, and I needed to experience that for myself. But one of the things that came up for me as I was preparing for Stranger Things, like I've always been very open and vocal about both my mental and my friends' battles with mental health and with addiction. But one of the things that came up for me, particularly whilst I was prepping for the show, was if I can stand up anywhere and talk about my experience and it just inspires one person who's feeling the same way, then that's it. I'm good. Like I feel like I've done as much as I can do, sort of publicly. Privately, I will always help people, but publicly I'll be like, look, this is me. This is the experience that I went through. I made a decision with the help of many others and something that guides me. And it's put me in a position now that I never dreamt was possible, ever. Yeah. Like, talk to me when I was 25, 24. I didn't think I'd make it to 27. I really, really didn't.